the Galactic Council's ultimatum. In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, a tense silence enveloped the assembly. The high representatives of various alien species waited in anticipation. The walls, adorned with shimmering symbols of countless civilizations, seemed to pulse with the gravity of the moment. High Chancellor Zor of the Quasar Dominion, a radiant being of pure energy, addressed the assembly with a voice that resonated through the chamber. Captain John Mason of Earth, Zor began, "We implore you to consider a ceasefire. The conflict has escalated beyond reason, resulting in unprecedented destruction." Captain Mason, Earth's brash and defiant representative, leaned back with a casual smirk. His demeanor was a stark contrast to the formal atmosphere of the council. "Ceasefire," he echoed, his tone dripping with challenge. "We've only just begun." The room buzzed with murmurs as Zor's irritation became palpable. The war has claimed countless lives. Surely there must be a better path forward. Mason's smirk widened. For centuries, humanity was divided, tearing itself apart. Now that we have a common enemy, it's been a unifying force. We're not just fighting, we're proving something. The Martian ambassador, a bipedal insectoid with clicking mandibles, interjected. "This conflict threatens the stability of the entire galaxy. There must be another way." Humanity's defiant stance. The council chamber remained shrouded in a heavy silence following Captain Mason's provocative declaration. The representatives of various alien species exchanged uneasy glances. The tension was palpable as the Galactic Council convened to address the escalating conflict with humanity. High Chancellor Zor, glowing with a soft, pulsing light that suggested a deepening frustration, maintained his composure with an effort that was visibly taxing. "Captain Mason," Zor said, his voice echoing with a resonant tone through the universal translator, "the destruction wrought by this conflict is unprecedented. Our civilizations are on the brink of collapse. The purpose of this council is to seek peace and prevent further calamity." Mason's casual demeanor contrasted sharply with the gravity of Zor's words. "Peace," he scoffed, leaning back in his chair with an air of nonchalance. "You think we're ready to call it quits? We've only just begun. This conflict has brought humanity together in ways we've never seen. We're united, stronger, and more determined than ever." The Martian ambassador, a figure with a translucent exoskeleton that shimmered faintly in the ambient light, clicked his mandibles anxiously. "Captain, this war has already cost trillions of lives and left entire star systems in ruins. Surely, there must be a better way to resolve this. Your unrelenting drive might be better spent on constructive measures." Mason's eyes flashed with a mix of defiance and pride. "You don't understand. For centuries, humanity fought amongst itself. We were divided by land, resources, and beliefs. When the Coxian Empire launched their campaign against us, it was like they handed us a common enemy. That unity has given us a purpose and drive that's beyond anything we've ever had." Zor's luminescence flared brighter, indicating his irritation. "But this conflict is destabilizing the entire galaxy. The sheer scale of destruction is untenable. We need to find a way to halt this before it leads to total annihilation." The Verdant Collective, a gaseous life form within a pulsating sphere, emitted a series of fluctuating colors that reflected its agitation. "Captain Mason, while we understand your perspective, the continuation of this war jeopardizes the very fabric of our galactic society. We need to seek a resolution." Mason chuckled, a sound that reverberated with both amusement and menace. "Resolution? The only resolution we're interested in is total victory. Our scientists are working around the clock. Our factories are producing war machines at an unprecedented rate, and our soldiers are eager for battle. If you want peace, you'll have to convince the Coxian Empire to surrender." A murmur of agreement and discontent spread through the council. The Coxian Empire, a reptilian race known for its expansionist policies, had been the primary antagonist in the current galactic conflict. Their aggressive actions had drawn the galaxy into a chaotic and destructive war. High Chancellor Zor's luminescence dimmed slightly a sign of contemplation. The Krayan delegation has expressed a willingness to negotiate. They recognize the tenacity and resilience of your species. Perhaps we can mediate a dialogue between your two races. Mason's grin faded, replaced by a steely resolve. Dialogue. The Coxian Empire has committed atrocities against us. They bombed our colonies, slaughtered our civilians, and pushed us to the brink. We don't want dialogue. We want justice. They started this war, and we intend to finish it. At that moment, the chamber's lights dimmed, and a holographic projection materialized in the center of the room. The projection displayed Emperor Zorx of the Coxian Empire. His reptilian scales glistened under the artificial light, and his eyes narrowed with a mix of defiance and irritation. Emperor Zorx, Zor's voice echoed through the chamber. We have summoned you to address the ongoing conflict and the possibility of a resolution. Emperor Zorx's voice, harsh and clipped, resonated with the weight of authority. High Chancellor, you know as well as I do that the Coxian Empire will not yield easily. We are prepared to fight to the last breath. Your attempts at negotiation will not deter us. Mason's expression hardened. You hear that? They're not interested in peace. They're interested in dominance. If they won't negotiate, we will continue to fight, and we won't stop until we achieve victory. As the projection faded, the room was left in an uneasy silence. The representatives of the Galactic Council were faced with the daunting realization that the conflict with humanity was far from over. The determination and resolve of Earth's representatives were clear. The path to peace, if it existed at all, seemed increasingly distant as both sides prepared for an unyielding struggle. The council members exchanged glances, knowing that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and the outcome of the conflict would shape the future of countless civilizations. Mason's eyes narrowed. You don't understand. This war has united humanity in a way nothing else could. We are driven, and we will fight for what we believe in. The Coxian Empire strikes back. The chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with low, anxious murmurs as the holographic projection of Emperor Zorx dissolved. The representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their thoughts racing as they grappled with the gravity of the situation. High Chancellor Zor, his luminescent form reflecting a mix of frustration and determination, turned to the council members. The time for deliberation is over, Zor declared, his voice resolute. We must take immediate action to prevent further escalation. The representatives nodded in agreement, their expressions a blend of concern and resolve. They knew that the Coxian Empire was not one to back down easily. The reptilian race had a reputation for relentless aggression and a fierce determination to expand their dominion. The high-stakes conflict had already resulted in catastrophic losses, and the possibility of further devastation loomed large. Meanwhile, on the front lines of the conflict, the situation was rapidly deteriorating. The Coxian Empire, stung by humanity's defiant stance, had launched a series of coordinated retaliatory strikes against Earth's forces. The Coxian fleets, a formidable force of advanced warships and heavily armed soldiers, descended upon key human-controlled systems with brutal efficiency. In the midst of the chaos, the crew of the U.S. Titan, one of Earth's most advanced warships, found themselves in the heart of the conflict. Captain Alex Mercer, a seasoned veteran with a reputation for tactical brilliance, stood on the bridge of his ship, his face set in a determined scowl. Captain, we've received word of Coxian incursions in the Alpha Centauri system, reported Lieutenant Sarah Ramirez, the ship's operations officer. They've launched a full-scale assault on the civilian colonies there. The situation is dire. Captain Mercer's eyes narrowed as he absorbed the report. We can't let them continue unchecked. Prep the fleet for immediate engagement. We need to push them back and secure those colonies before they're completely overrun. The Titan's crew sprang into action, their movements a well-coordinated ballet of efficiency as they prepared for battle. The ship's advanced weaponry systems hummed with readiness, and the powerful engines roared to life as the Titan and its accompanying fleet surged towards the beloved Alpha Centauri system. As the Titan approached the system, the scene that unfolded before them was nothing short of catastrophic. Warships, their sleek and menacing forms cutting through the void of space, engaged in a relentless assault on the human colonies. Explosions lit up the dark expanse, and the desperate cries of civilians echoed through the comm channels. "Captain, we're detecting multiple vessels closing in on our position," Lieutenant Ramirez announced. "They're preparing to engage." "Brace for impact," Mercer ordered, his voice carrying the weight of both authority and urgency. "We're going to give them everything we've got. All hands, battle stations." The Titan's weapon systems erupted in a flurry of dazzling energy as it engaged the Coxian fleet. The ship's plasma cannons fired in precise bursts, striking the enemy vessels with devastating force. The ships retaliated with a barrage of laser fire, their weapons cutting through the void with deadly accuracy. Amidst the chaos of battle, Captain Mercer's tactical acumen shone through. He deftly maneuvered the Titan, weaving through the onslaught of enemy fire and positioning the ship to deliver crippling blows to the forces. The crew, working in unison, executed complex maneuvers with practiced precision, their focus unwavering even in the face of overwhelming odds. Despite their best efforts, the Empire proved to be a formidable adversary. Their ships, heavily armored and bristling with advanced weaponry, pushed the limits of human capability. The battle raged on, each side locked in a relentless struggle for dominance. Back at the Galactic Council, the members continued their urgent discussions. High Chancellor, his luminescence reflecting a deepening sense of dread, addressed the Council with a tone of somber urgency. "We are witnessing the unfolding of a catastrophic conflict," said. "The Empire is determined to press their advantage, and humanity's resolve shows no sign of wavering. We must find a way to bring this to a swift and decisive conclusion." The Verdant Collective, its gaseous form pulsing with an anxious rhythm, added its voice to the conversation. "We cannot allow this conflict to consume the galaxy. We must seek out any potential avenues for negotiation or resolution." High Chancellor expression hardened with determination. "Very well. We will intensify our efforts to mediate between the warring factions, but we must also prepare for the possibility that this conflict may escalate further before any resolution is reached." As the Council members deliberated, the conflict continued to unfold across the galaxy. The Empire's aggression showed no signs of abating, and the human forces remained resolute in their defense. The fate of countless civilizations hung in the balance as both sides continued their relentless struggle for dominance. In the midst of the turmoil, Captain Mercer and his crew aboard the U.S. Titan fought valiantly to protect their home and their allies. The battle for the Alpha Centauri system raged on, and the outcome remained uncertain. The struggle for survival and victory continued, with each side determined to prevail against the other. As the conflict unfolded, the galaxy watched with bated breath, waiting to see if peace could be achieved or if the war would continue to spiral into an all-consuming inferno. The stakes had never been higher, and the resolution of the conflict seemed as elusive as the turning tide. The Galactic Council chamber was now a storm of activity. Council members debated fiercely, their voices rising in passionate arguments as they attempted to devise a strategy to bring the relentless conflict to an end. Meanwhile, the war raged across the galaxy, and the situation continued to escalate. On the battlefield, the U.S. Titan and its fleet had managed to push back the Coxian Empire's forces, but the victory came at a steep price. The Alpha Centauri system, once a thriving hub of human civilization, lay in ruins, with entire colonies devastated by the assault. The damage was extensive, and the human casualties were mounting. Captain Alex Mercer stood on the bridge of the Titan, his face etched with fatigue and determination. The holographic display in front of him showed a grim picture of the battlefield. The fleet was regrouping, preparing for another offensive. The Titan's crew, though exhausted, remained focused and resolute. "Captain, we've detected a new wave of ships approaching from the outer rim," reported Lieutenant Sara Ramirez. "They're massing for a major assault." Mercer's jaw tightened. "Prepare the fleet for a defensive maneuver. We need to hold them off long enough to give the civilian evacuation teams a chance to reach safety." The Titan's crew sprang into action, their movements precise and coordinated as they prepared for the impending battle. The ship's weapon systems hummed with readiness, and the powerful engines roared to life as the fleet moved into position. As the ships approached, the Titan's crew engaged in a fierce battle to defend the remaining human colonies. The vessels, their sleek and menacing forms cutting through the void of space, unleashed a barrage of firepower that lit up the dark expanse. The human ships responded with equal ferocity, their weapons systems blazing as they fought to hold the line. Despite their best efforts, the situation was dire. The Empire's superior firepower and advanced technology pushed the human forces to their limits. The Titan and its allies fought valiantly, but the relentless onslaught of the Coxian fleet began to take its toll. Back at the Galactic Council, High Chancellor convened an emergency session with the Council members. The situation was becoming increasingly desperate, and the need for a resolution had never been more urgent. "We must take decisive action to prevent further escalation," declared, his voice resonating with a mix of determination and concern. "We cannot allow this conflict to spiral out of control. We need to find a way to bring both sides to the negotiating table." The Verdant Collective, its gaseous form pulsating with a rhythmic pattern, spoke up. "We must also consider the possibility of outside intervention. There may be factions or forces within the galaxy that could help to mediate or influence the outcome." Nodded thoughtfully. "Agreed. We will reach out to other influential factions and seek their assistance in resolving this conflict. We must act quickly before the situation becomes irreversible." In the midst of the Council's deliberations, a new development emerged. The Empire, recognizing the potential for further conflict and the growing pressure from the Galactic Council, made an unexpected move. The Coxian emissaries reached out to the Council, requesting a formal ceasefire negotiation. The news was met with a mixture of skepticism and hope. The Empire, known for its aggressive expansionist policies, had rarely sought peace under such circumstances. The Council members were cautious, but saw this as a potential opportunity to de-escalate the situation. High Chancellor, seizing the opportunity, called for an urgent meeting with the representatives. The meeting was held in a specially secured chamber, with both sides prepared to discuss terms and conditions for a potential ceasefire. Captain Mercer, still reeling from the recent battles, was informed of the ceasefire negotiations. Although he was skeptical of the true intentions, he understood the importance of exploring every possible avenue for peace. On the other side of the negotiating table, the emissaries, led by Ambassador, a reptilian diplomat with a reputation for shrewd negotiation, began the discussions. Kroll, his scales reflecting the dim light of the chamber, addressed the Council members with a tone of cautious optimism. "We understand the immense toll this conflict has taken on both sides," said. "The Empire is prepared to discuss terms for a ceasefire and explore potential pathways to a lasting resolution." High Chancellor, his luminescence steady, responded with a mix of diplomacy and resolve. "We appreciate your willingness to engage in dialogue. The terms of any ceasefire will need to address the grievances and ensure a stable and equitable resolution for all parties involved." As the negotiations unfolded, both sides presented their demands and conditions. The Empire sought assurances of territorial concessions and resource allocations, while humanity demanded guarantees of security and reparations for the damage inflicted during the conflict. The discussions were tense and complex, with each side negotiating from a position of strength while striving to find common ground. Despite the challenges, there was a growing sense of cautious hope that a resolution could be reached. Back on the battlefield, the ceasefire negotiations provided a temporary respite. The fighting subsided as both sides awaited the outcome of the talks. The human forces, though battered and weary, took the opportunity to regroup and tend to their wounded. Captain Mercer and his crew, despite their exhaustion, remained vigilant. They knew that the outcome of the negotiations would have a profound impact on their future and the fate of the galaxy. The fragile pause in hostilities offered a glimmer of hope, but the road to peace remained uncertain. As the negotiations continued, the galaxy held its breath, watching for any signs of progress or setbacks. The stakes were high, and the resolution of the conflict hung in the balance. The path to peace would require diplomacy, compromise, and a shared commitment to ending the bloodshed. With the ceasefire talks underway and both sides reflecting on the potential for a new beginning, the galaxy stood at a pivotal moment in its history. The hope for a resolution and the possibility of a more stable future provided a glimmer of light in the midst of the ongoing turmoil. The unseen strategy. The fragile ceasefire held as the Galactic Council's negotiations continued, and the galaxy, for a brief moment, experienced an uneasy calm. The discussions between the Coxian Empire and the Galactic Council were intense and complex, and the outcome remained uncertain. Both sides were making concessions, but trust was in short supply. In the midst of the temporary peace, Captain Alex Mercer and his crew aboard the U.S. Titan had a chance to regroup and reassess their strategy. The Titan had sustained significant damage during the recent battles, and the crew was exhausted. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, Mercer remained resolute. He knew that whatever the outcome of the ceasefire talks, humanity needed to be prepared for every possible scenario. Mercer gathered his senior officers in the ship's briefing room. The room, dimly lit by the soft glow of holographic displays, was filled with the tension of a battle-weary crew. The recent victories had come at a great cost, and everyone understood the importance of the upcoming decisions. "We've managed to hold our ground," Mercer began, "but the Coxian Empire is not to be underestimated. Their aggression has been relentless, and their tactics are cunning. We need to be prepared for any eventuality." Lieutenant Sarah Ramirez, the Titan's chief tactical officer, nodded in agreement. "The ceasefire is a chance to reassess and strengthen our positions. We should use this time to fortify our defenses and gather intelligence on the Coxian fleet's movements." Lieutenant Commander David Blackwood, the ship's strategic analyst, added, "We've intercepted some encrypted communications from the Coxians. They're planning something significant, and we need to find out what it is." The crew's focus shifted to the holographic display showing the latest intelligence data. The encrypted transmissions were fragmented but hinted at a potential shift in the Coxian strategy. It appeared that the Coxians were consolidating their forces and preparing for a major offensive, despite their public call for peace. Mercer's brow furrowed with concern. "It looks like we may be facing another wave of aggression. If the ceasefire breaks down, we need to be ready to respond quickly and decisively. Prepare for potential redeployment and increased security measures." As the crew worked diligently to implement these strategies, a covert operation was set into motion. A small, specialized team was dispatched to infiltrate a Coxian-controlled area to gather more intelligence. The team, led by Lieutenant Commander Blackwood, was equipped with the latest stealth technology and tasked with discovering the true nature of the Coxian plans. Meanwhile, on the Coxian side, the high-ranking officials were engaged in their own internal discussions. Emperor Zorx, the leader of the Coxian Empire, convened a secret meeting with his top advisors. The grand hall of the Coxian Command Center was filled with the hushed murmurs of reptilian figures, their scales reflecting the dim light of the chamber. "We've achieved a temporary pause in the conflict, but our objectives remain unchanged," Emperor Zorx declared, his voice carrying an air of authority. "Our strategy must continue to advance, and we cannot let our guard down." A senior advisor, General Kralik, responded, "The ceasefire has given us time to regroup and reinforce our position. However, we must be cautious not to appear weak. Our ultimate goal remains the conquest of key strategic systems and the consolidation of our power." Emperor Zorx nodded thoughtfully. "Agreed. We must ensure that our presence is felt and that our enemies understand our resolve. We'll use this period to strengthen our alliances and prepare for a decisive move. Back at the Galactic Council, High Chancellor Zor was acutely aware of the delicate balance required to maintain the ceasefire. The council members continued to negotiate terms and seek assurances from the Coxian representatives. The discussions were fraught with tension, but there was a genuine effort to find common ground. The Verdun Collective, with its ethereal form shifting in response to the ongoing debate, proposed a compromise. We suggest establishing a neutral zone around the contested regions. This zone could act as a buffer and provide a space for both sides to disengage and rebuild. The unraveling peace. The temporary ceasefire held, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered like a barely contained inferno. The Galactic Council's efforts to mediate peace were fraught with challenges as each faction clung to its own interests and demands. The neutral zone proposed by the Verdun Collective was set to be established, but its effectiveness remained uncertain. The Coxian Empire and humanity both had reservations about its implementation. Captain Alex Mercer and his crew aboard the U.S. Titan were deeply engaged in preparations, their every action aimed at preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. The intelligence gathered from the Coxian Research Facility had revealed troubling developments, advanced weaponry, and new tactical technologies being developed in secret. The knowledge that the Coxians were not truly committed to peace was a heavy burden, but it also sharpened their resolve. In the command center of the Titan, Captain Mercer and his senior officers convened to discuss their next moves. The mood was tense, with a sense of urgency palpable in the room. "We've got to assume that the Coxians are preparing for a major offensive," Mercer said, his voice resolute. "Our intelligence suggests they're not interested in a genuine peace. We need to use the ceasefire to our advantage, fortify our positions, and prepare for any possible aggression." Lieutenant Commander David Blackwood, who had led the covert operation, nodded in agreement. "The data we've gathered indicates that their advancements in weaponry could shift the balance of power. We should accelerate our own technological developments and strengthen our alliances with other factions that oppose the Coxians." Lieutenant Sarah Ramirez, the Titan's chief tactical officer, chimed in. "We should also increase our surveillance and reconnaissance efforts. We need to know exactly what the Coxians are up to and anticipate their movements. Our current resources and assets must be maximized to their fullest potential." As the Titan's crew worked diligently to implement these strategies, the Galactic Council's negotiations continued, with varying degrees of success. The establishment of the neutral zone was underway, but its actual impact was still uncertain. Both the Coxians and humanity were required to pull back their forces from the contested regions, but compliance was spotty at best. High Chancellor Zor, who had been working tirelessly to mediate between the conflicting parties, addressed the council chamber with a tone of cautious optimism. "The neutral zone is a significant step forward, but is only the beginning. We must continue to engage in dialogue and address the underlying issues that led to this conflict." The Coxian representatives, led by Ambassador Kroll, remained skeptical. The neutral zone is a temporary measure. What guarantees can the Council provide that this will lead to a lasting resolution? Our people demand assurances that their security and interests will be protected. On the other side of the negotiating table, the human representatives, including Captain Mercer, voiced their concerns. The ceasefire has provided a reprieve, but the underlying hostility from the Coxians remains. We need concrete steps towards disarmament and assurances that the Coxians will not exploit this pause to strengthen their military position. Despite the ongoing negotiations, incidents continued to occur around the neutral zone. Skirmishes broke out between patrols from different factions, and sporadic attacks on supply convoys raised questions about the effectiveness of the ceasefire. Trust was in short supply, and the slightest provocation had the potential to unravel the fragile peace. In the midst of this turbulent period, the Titan's covert operations yielded new intelligence. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood's team intercepted a high-level transmission from the Coxian Empire that confirmed the worst fears. The Coxians were not only preparing for an imminent offensive, but also planning a coordinated assault on key strategic systems that would give them a decisive advantage in the conflict. The intelligence report was alarming. It detailed a large-scale mobilization of Coxian forces, including the deployment of their newly developed weaponry. The Coxians were preparing to launch a multi-pronged attack aimed at undermining the neutrality of the zone and seizing control of critical resources. Captain Mercer and his crew faced a daunting challenge. They had to act swiftly to counter the Coxian threat while continuing to engage in the complex diplomatic landscape of the Galactic Council. Their plan included fortifying their defenses, increasing their own technological advancements, and rallying support from other factions opposed to Coxian expansion. As the days passed, the tension escalated. The fragile ceasefire was tested repeatedly, with both sides pushing the boundaries of the agreement. The Titan's crew worked around the clock to prepare for the impending conflict, knowing that the decisions made in the coming days could determine the fate of the galaxy. High Chancellor Zor's efforts to mediate peace faced increasing resistance. The Council's attempts to address the Coxian demands for security and the human insistence on accountability were met with frustration from all sides. The negotiations were becoming increasingly polarized, and the risk of renewed hostilities grew. In the midst of this chaos, a daring plan began to take shape. The Titan, along with allied forces, prepared to undertake a preemptive strike to disrupt the Coxian preparations and prevent the imminent offensive. The mission was risky and required precise coordination, but it was seen as a necessary step to protect the fragile peace and safeguard humanity's interests. As the final preparations for the operation unfolded, the crew of the Titan was filled with a mixture of determination and apprehension. The stakes were high, and the outcome of the mission would have far-reaching implications for the galaxy. The unspoken fear was that the conflict could spiral into an all-out war, with devastating consequences for all involved. The Coxian representatives, led by Ambassador Kroll, considered the proposal with interest. A neutral zone could provide the stability needed to facilitate further negotiations. However, we must ensure that our interests are protected and that the terms are equitable. High Chancellor Zor's eyes glowed with determination. If both sides agree to the establishment of a neutral zone, it will be a significant step toward a more permanent resolution. We must also address the underlying grievances and work towards a comprehensive peace agreement. As the negotiations continued, the ceasefire held, but the underlying tension remained palpable. The galaxy was caught in a delicate dance between hope and uncertainty. The respite provided by the ceasefire allowed for some healing, but the shadow of potential conflict loomed large. The covert operation undertaken by the Titan's team began to yield results. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood and his team infiltrated a Coxian research facility and uncovered critical intelligence. The facility was conducting experiments on advanced weaponry and tactical technologies, potentially preparing for a new wave of assaults. The revelations from the operation confirmed Mercer's fears. The Coxian Empire was not backing down. Rather, they were using the ceasefire as an opportunity to enhance their military capabilities. The information was crucial for planning humanity's next moves and ensuring that they were ready for any eventuality. With the intelligence gathered, Captain Mercer and his team crafted a detailed plan to fortify their defenses and counter any potential Coxian offensives. The crew of the Titan worked tirelessly to implement the new strategies, knowing that their preparedness could determine the outcome of the conflict. As the negotiations at the Galactic Council continued and the covert operations uncovered new information, the galaxy stood on the precipice of change. The delicate balance between peace and war hung in the balance, and every decision made by the leaders and military commanders would shape the future of the galaxy. With the ceasefire holding and the preparations underway, the stage was set for a pivotal moment in the ongoing conflict. The next steps would determine whether the fragile peace could be sustained or if the galaxy would be plunged back into the chaos of war. The scene was set for a critical confrontation. The ceasefire had provided a temporary respite, but the underlying tensions and the looming threat of Coxian aggression made it clear that the galaxy was on the brink of a new chapter in its tumultuous history. The next steps would determine whether the fragile peace could be preserved or if the galaxy would be plunged back into the chaos of war. The decisive moment had arrived. The Titan and its ally forces were poised for action, their preparations meticulously orchestrated. The preemptive strike against them was set to commence, and the crew felt the weight of their mission pressing upon them. Captain Mercer stood on the bridge of the Titan, his gaze fixed on the viewscreen displaying the vast expanse of space. His thoughts were focused, his resolve unwavering. The operation was risky, but it was crucial to prevent the Coxians from executing their planned offensive. The success of the mission could tip the scales and either secure a lasting peace or plunge the galaxy into renewed chaos. "All right, team," Mercer addressed his crew, his voice steady and commanding. "We've trained for this, we've prepared for this. Our objective is clear: disrupt the Coxian offensive and protect our allies. Stay sharp and follow the plan. We're counting on each other." As the Titan's engines roared to life, the crew took their positions with practiced efficiency. The operation commenced with a series of coordinated strikes on key Coxian facilities. The Titan's advanced weaponry and tactical maneuvers were put to the test as they engaged the Coxians in a series of swift, decisive battles. The initial phase of the operation was successful, with several strategic targets hit and the Coxian offensive plans disrupted. However, the fight was far from over. The Coxians responded with fierce resistance, and the battles raged on as both sides clashed in the vastness of space. Throughout the intense combat, the crew of the Titan demonstrated remarkable bravery and skill. The tide of battle ebbed and flowed, but the Titan's crew remained resolute. Their determination and unity were a testament to their commitment to the mission and their belief in the cause. The climax of the operation came as the Titan executed a daring maneuver that turned the tide in their favor. The Coxians, caught off guard by the Titan's audacious strategy, began to falter. Their advance was halted, and the immediate threat of their planned offensive was effectively neutralized. With the Coxian forces in disarray, the Titan and its allies achieved a crucial victory. The immediate threat had been addressed, and the ceasefire was preserved, at least for the time being. The battles had been hard-fought, but the mission's success brought a moment of relief and cautious optimism. In the aftermath of the conflict, the Galactic Council reconvened to assess the situation. High Chancellor Zor acknowledged the bravery and resolve demonstrated by all sides. The Council's renewed focus was on stabilizing the situation and addressing the underlying issues that had led to the conflict. As the Titan's crew celebrated their hard-won victory, they knew that the journey was far from over. The path to lasting peace would require continued effort, diplomacy, and vigilance. The galaxy was still a place of uncertainty, but the courage and determination shown by humanity and its allies had set a powerful example of resilience. Captain Mercer, reflecting on the mission, felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. The operation had been a testament to the strength and unity of humanity in the face of adversity. The dawn of resolve had broken, and with it came the hope that the galaxy could move toward a more stable and peaceful future.